Hello everyone, I have upgraded. I now have a microphone. This is exciting stuff. Welcome everyone back to my channel. My name is Valerie B and we're back with another book review. It is the next in the Empyrean series, Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. As per usual, there are mixed reactions and feelings on this book. Now that I've finished it, I'm leaning towards liking it rather than disliking it. The usual, we're going to break it down by plot, writing, and characters. I didn't do that for the last one because honestly that was so chaotic and such a shit show. But we're going to bring it back for this video because I'm reviewing each book in the series. Just a reminder, there are going to be a lot of spoilers in this. So if you haven't read the book, don't watch the video. If you have read the book, continue watching. Or if you just don't care, you know, do what you want. Free will. Don't say I didn't warn you though, okay? Don't blame it on me. Also, I'm not going to say any characters' names right. I have not been saying anyone's names correctly. If you've seen my other two videos, you already know I've been butchering them for a while, so. For the plot, there's a lot happening. So the overall goals for this third book are 1, to find a cure for Venom, more specifically Xaden, because Violet has that emotional attachment to him. And then secondly, to find out what Indarna's species is, and then to go find them. I feel like this book can be split up into 3 sections. You have your pre, your during, and your post-Isle search. So the first third or so of the book is the pre-Isle search. We start the book with Navarre and Peromiel trying to put together this sort of like peace treaty as well as alliance to okay, so I'll be so honest, off the get-go, like the first 10 or so chapters I was very lost, but there's this treaty alliance going on where they're trying to ensure essentially that like the Griffin Flyers can stay with the Dragon Riders and train, and then, you know, they can team up to try and fight off the Venom because the Venom are coming for essentially both kingdoms, and it's not going super well. Also, Xaden has officially taken or has been given the title of being the Duke of Tyrrendor, so now he has a bunch of added responsibility. So for finding Indarna's kind, Violet is really hoping to be able to take the reins on this mission and put together her own team, her own objectives, her own timeline, because she's the one who is bonded to Indarna, as well as like dragons don't follow a lot of like the rules or orders given to humans. They're like, we do our own thing. We do not subject to you human puny people. Okay, you are not on the same level as us.
They not like us.
It's not going super great. Violet gets assigned Captain Grady as being her superior and in charge of the team. And so that plan for her to be able to have control for this quest doesn't work, as well as the treaty is not going super well. So she is trying to save that by somehow, this didn't make any sense to me. Really anything with the word stones, ruins, to be quite honest, still doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Never will, and I've accepted that. But they find a way to manipulate the ward stone to somehow allow the Griffin Riders to perform their like lesser magic. Violet gets arrested for it, but she ends up getting pardoned because she's like, you need me and you need my dragon, so like if you're gonna arrest me, you can't.
Don't make me fire you.
You can't fire me.
And so Violet tries again to get her terms to be like accepted for the quest and the squad. The council, or they call it the Scenarium, agrees to Indarna's terms, but they don't agree to Violet's terms. And Violet ends up like tearing into the Scenarium about this, of which Xaden makes the first of many comments about, oh, Violet would make such a great duchess, such a great queen, such a great wife. Like, that is the first of many comments that man makes about tying the knot with Violet. As the saying goes, first one's an accident, second's a coincidence, third's pattern. Okay. Well, also, while we're back at school, we learn that Colonel Ados, Stain's dad, is now the new commanding general of Basgiath, so he has taken over Mama Sorengale's role.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
He has it out for Violet and basically threatens Violet and her squad, saying that, Violet, if you don't fall in line, your squad will pay for it. And of course, because the squad is so loyal to Violet, they're like, bring it on.
Bring it.
Because Colonel Ados doesn't like Violet, and he's like, since you guys are all such, you know, pros in war, you're gonna spend your first couple days back out on the front lines in Samaria. They make it to Samaria, and whoever they have to check in with is like so irritated with Colonel Ados. He's like, I really don't have the time to deal with you guys, so just find something to do that's not being out on the field. Call it good. While they're there, they find out that there's an outlying town called, where is it? Called Newhall. That is where Marin's family is residing right now. Marin is one of the Griffin Riders. They find out that that place is like burning or something, or they have to evacuate, and she's like, we need to go find my family. Turns out it is this huge setup to lure Violet out, because there is a special venom that I believe was introduced in book 2. Don't remember, couldn't tell you. And she goes by the name, wait for it, Theophany. We call her Theophany in this house. Yes, ma'am. Why? Because, first of all, that is an atrocious name, honey. I'm so sad Rebecca assigned that to you. Ugh. That's a horrible name. Theophany. Or Theophany. Whatever. When I first read that, my mind immediately went to Stephanie, but with a Theo in it. So I pronounce it in my brain as Theophany, because Stephanie. Theophany. It's bad no matter how you say it, no matter how you announce it. Pronounce it. Poor thing. Poor thing. While Violet is like flying to this town, her and Taryn hit a tornado. Huh? The tornado, so very random, knocks out Taryn. After she lands, she's in a bit of a kerfuffle. Garrick, my man's Garrick, got me get it for Garrick, shows up to save the day, to help her out. Love. He kind of saves the day, he kind of doesn't. Theophany shows up. She is here to pass on a message. She doesn't actually like attack Violet. She's just there saying like they're interested in Darna as well as like Violet and Xaden, and then she like disappears.
Blah blah blah. Threat.
But through Garrick coming to try and help the situation, we find out that Garrick has a second signet, which is that he is a distance wielder. Essentially, this man teleports. Big slay. Big slay. I love it. Which then leads Violet as well as the reader to think that like, hey, do all Relic kids have a second signet? They do. So far, we only know that Garrick and Xaden have a second signet, but it's a little weird that 2 have them, right?
If I had a nickel for every time I was doomed by a puppet, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
And then there's also just a lot of issues happening with the current Quest Squad team. Redoc really wants to be part of this Quest Squad. He's very determined about it. He's doing everything in his power, as well as really pushing Violet to be like, put me on the team, put me on the team, put me in, coach. Violet keeps saying, hey, I think we should go south to look for this dragon species, and Captain Grady is just like, no, we gotta go north. Prince Halden shows up, and Prince Halden, we find out, is Violet's ex. He makes a deal with Violet saying like, hey, if you can acquire this special gemstone, then I will talk to Captain Grady and I will get him to change course from going north to going south. So now that she has this mission from Prince Halden, her and the Quest God go to retrieve this gemstone. It's kind of like a trial run to see how well they work together. It goes up in flames. Quite literally. Because one of the members, her name's Aura. Oh, yes. And she is a fire wielder. She's very mean, but she doesn't really believe anything Violet's saying. And she's like, I can handle it. I'm better than you. I can protect myself. I'm not going to listen to you. But then at the creaking sound of a door, this girl freaks out and shoots fire blindly in the direction of the door. Who was opening that door, you ask? Captain Grady. She burns this man alive, giving her -1,000 aura points. And then to add on to that, that triggers Venom to show up, and then the Venom kill her. So now we're at, Aura is at like a -1,000,000 aura points. She dead, she gone. And so, because of this, Violet now gets Quest Squad 2.0. Quest Squad is the best squad, okay? We get Violet Sorengale, she is now the leader of the team. We have Xaden, who's the best fighter, as well as he does his little shadow thing. We have Mira, Drake, and Kat Cordella. Kat is the representative for Paromial, and then Drake is her cousin. And then we have Redoc, who finally gets his dream of being on the quest squad. He's there for Violet's personal safety. He has a whole spiel about it. It's very good, very nice. Love it so much. Dane is put onto the team because he knows the Kravish language, which is very common for where they're going, as well as he's just supposed to be like a general translator. Also on this team is Holden. Holden is required to go for obvious political alliances. So that is the new quest squad. Now we are entering section 2 of the book, the Isle Search. They go to a total of 4 isles, and each isle pertains to a specific god. First stop on the Isle Search is Deverelli. Deverelli is known to be the most neutral of the isles. When they go to the isles, all the isles, there's no magic that exists. Because there's no magic on the isle, Xaden experiences this extreme state of like zen and peace, and it freaks everyone the out because they're like, who are you? What did you do with Xaden? And I loved it. I thought it was such a nice change of pace, as well as very funny. So the purpose to go into Deverelli is one, for a potential alliance with the king, as well as they have to go to a bookstore to retrieve journals from Violet's dad. She got some of them earlier this book because they held a bunch of information, kind of alluding to like he might know about where Indarna's Kine is. But then there's like a note in it saying like, oh, you need to go to Deverelli and get the rest of my journals, because he likes to make life hard.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad!
And so they go to this bookstore to retrieve those. While they're off at the bookstore, Holden is at the king's palace trying to put together an alliance. It does not go well. Turns out the king now has Holden in like his custody and essentially like kidnapped him because Holden screwed up. Xaden and Violet now have to go to try to fix things. We get our second mention of Xaden marrying Violet. It goes south very quickly to the point that Xaden, on an isle of no magic, is able to channel and whip out shadows and kill everyone in sight. And everyone's like, what the fuck? Holden was knocked out for this, so he doesn't know that Xaden is Venom. But so that alliance falls through. Doesn't work. Then they have to go back to the continent for a while. We get 2 more members added to the squad. We get Traeger, who is a Griffin Flyer. And Eric takes Holden's place on the squad because he's like, bro, you suck. You're gonna get us all killed. And I'm not gonna let that happen. You are such a liability, so I'm gonna replace you. So now that is the official team for Quest Squad. Quest Squad is the best squad. So now they're going back to the Isles. It then turns into this weird tournament, trials and tribulations type deal. At each Isle, they have to go through a test in order to gain an audience with whoever is in charge to maybe make an alliance, of which it fails almost every time. So their first stop is Unreal, where they worship the goddess of Dune. She is the goddess of war, and in order to gain an audience with the queen, they have to win at a fight. At first, they say, hey, it's 1v1, and then psych, just kidding, it's 3v3. So who does it? It's Xaden, Violet, and Dane. Dane loses very quickly. Poor guy, I was really rooting for him. Xaden and Violet win. Turns out Violet was fighting the queen the entire time. This is not a shocker. They get denied the alliance. They said, no, we don't want to help. The third stop is Isle Hedonus? Hedontus? Orthodontus? Hedotus. Shit, what was the first one I said? Hedontus? That sounded the best. Where they worship the god Hedion of wisdom. Upon arrival, this isn't a misdirect, but this is shocking. We meet Xaden's mom. Crazy. That's some fun lore to learn about. Her name is Talia, right? No. Is it? Wait. You know what? I don't even care. Xaden is not happy to see her in the slightest because we find out that his mom abandoned him at the age of 10. She ran away back to this isle. She ended up marrying the love of her life, who is part of the Isle's Triumvirate, which is basically like the council who run the Isle. And she ended up having 2 more sons. So Xaden is very bitter about this, as he should be. And that leads to some very interesting, very fun interactions. This section of chapters, some of my favorite chapters from the book. So while they're at the Isle, Xaden invites the team to a dinner, kind of as like a peace offering and hoping to potentially mend her relationship with Xaden. At dinner, the council is asking the team many questions about their life choices, and based off of these answers, they're judging them and their levels of wisdom. And then Xaden calls out his mom. I think it was nice to see him have some other emotions and kind of work through a lot of the trauma that he's dealing with, you know? And we get the third mention of Violet and Xaden getting married at this dinner. Find out Eric is a treasure trove of information because on each aisle he reveals something about himself or the government that they're, interacting with or something that everyone just looks at him and be like, why didn't you say anything? Never asked. And I love it. It's so good. While we're at this dinner, it is now the end of it. It's now dessert time. Xaden's mom has a chocolate cake made for everyone, but Violet catches on that the cake is poisonous. Garrick eats the cake. I was flabbergasted. I was shocked. I gasped. Beautiful, beautiful himbo of a man. He ate the cake. So he's convulsing on the floor. Slowly dying, of which then Violet pulls an Uno reverse and she poisoned the council without them knowing, and she gives a speech that would make Kaz Brecker proud.
What did you do? I buried him 6 feet deep.
Like, it is so diabolical. It is so Kaz Brecker coded. I'm like, fucking slay. Where was the smarts and humor and wit in book 2? So while Garrick is being poisoned, Violet and Redoc try to find a cure, of which Redoc gets stabbed. And I was this close to DNFing this book. Both Garrick, my husband, and Redoc, my boyfriend, are potentially dying within the same chapter? No. No. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. If they both die, I'm DNFing. I'm DNFing this book so fast. So, then we go to the Isle of Zahilna, where they worship the god Zinel. He's the god of luck. Everyone's very wacky on this isle, and the trial and tribulation they have to face here is they have to like roll a dice or like spin a wheel and receive a gift. No, they have to pick a card, and whatever's on the card is the gift that they receive, and they can't react to the gift, otherwise they aren't granted access to the queen. I read this and I was like, how much you want to bet Redoc's gonna get the short end of the stick and get like the worst one possible? I was wrong. It was worse. I don't know why I didn't think of this, but like the worst gift possible was not death. It was not. Didn't cross my mind for 1 second, and that was one of the options. So because they live on this isle where they focus on luck, they're just like, whatever's meant to be is meant to be. It's very much giving.
Accused will now spin the wheel of punishment to determine his sentence.
Come on, torture machine! Eaten by bears! Razor pit!
Community service! Please stop on community service.
Looks like it's boiled in oil.
So it's very much giving that. So then they've gone to pretty much all the isles. When they've been at each isle, they've been trying to make an alliance. None of them have worked out except for the Isle of Luck. And then none of the isles have had dragons. So that has been a fail there. So they're looking at these uninhabited islands. Think of like the Pacific Islands to see if there are any Irids there. Violet is paired with Redoc. The Irids come and find them. And the Irids are really special. They are magic themselves. They say that. And it really kind of makes you think of like, okay, how is that going to play into the rest of the book? But they have this special power where they can connect to anyone mentally to create that communication channel. And Andarna gives basically her whole life story, of which the Irids are appalled because the Irids are a species of dragon that are peaceful. And so they left Andarna there in hopes that the dragons and the people would be better by the time she hatched. And so they're very disappointed. They're like, you cannot join our clan, and you have proven that the dragons and the people have not evolved. We disown you. There's one specific Irid called Leothin. He's the only one who is hesitant to reject Indarna. And he's the only one who's a bit more understanding or willing to understand her circumstance and the way she was raised. When the Irids leave, Xaden comes back and his eyes are all red, which then Redoc sees. So then Redoc and Violet have a conversation later on. And this man calls her the out on her bullshit. And he's like,
so we didn't learn. We didn't learn from last time. We didn't. So, we didn't learn. Comprehension.
And oh my god. Also one of my favorite chapters because he called her out on her bullshit. There's a lot of realizing that goes on for Violet in this book. She gets called out a couple times. And it's like on stuff she needs to be called out on. She needs to be reminded of like, hey, there's no way this is going to end the way you want it. So you need to be realistic and pick your battles and this and that, blah, 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 blah. A bunch of times in the book. As they should, because it's ridiculous. So they failed their mission. They go back home. And now we enter phase 3 of the book, which is post-Isle Search. Which is like kind of the best part of the book, to be honest. Redoc makes a deal with Xaden. And Xaden's like, what do I got to do to keep you quiet? And Redoc's like, we tell Jacinia Sawyer and Rhiannon when we get back, and I'll keep your secret. We're like, deal, easy. So Violet tells the OG squad there's still no cure found for Xaden. We find out Violet's second signet, which I wouldn't have guessed this. When I finished the end of the second book, I didn't really have an idea of what it was. I didn't really care to try to figure it out. I saw a lot of theories. It is confirmed in the third book that her second signet is dreamwalking.
Dream, 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 dream.
Which I was like, that is so convenient that she's a dreamwalker, isn't it? And it turns out she's been walking into Xaden's nightmares a lot. Then there's an attack at Orisha. At the end of the battle, we find out Leothin, the Irid, came to help. He fired up the ward stone in exchange for Indarna to come with him back to the rest of the Irid clan.
Let's all go to Dragonland.
To learn of her history and learn their ways. So Indarna leaves. She breaks off the connection with Violet. We'll get into that more a little bit later, but that happens. And then we get to the end of the book. Garrick. My lovely, lovely Garrick.
I love it. I'm addicted to it.
This man was pummeled. He got pummeled by Theophany. Theophany has a message for him to pass on to Violet and Xaden. That message is, you have 5 hours for you to bring Violet and your brother to me, or she dies and the city of Drathis falls. Who is she, you may ask? Mira. Everyone's freaking out now because they're like, oh my gosh, the Venin and the Wyvern are gonna come after Drathis, which is the city that has been showing up in Xaden's nightmares. And so they're trying to figure out what to do. They're like, we don't have enough people and resources to defend Drathis, and we're also taking a bunch of evacuees and refugees into Orisha. We don't have enough people to protect the school, and we can't send a bunch of first years to battle. It's a whole thing. Of course, second squad volunteer. During this whole kerfuffle and trying to figure out where to put everyone, Brennan calls Violet out on her bullshit of hey, this is the real world. You can't save everyone. You have to pick one objective. Okay? And she's like, what? And Brennan's like, I know it sucks, but that's the way it is. And it's always going to be like that. There's no way you're going to change that. You need to be realistic. Pick one objective. What are we doing? And that's such a tough pill to swallow, whether it's in a book or real life, because that's the same thing applies in real life. So she picks the objective of we're saving Mira and I'm going to kill Theophany. So Bodhi, Xaden, Brennan, and Violet go to meet up with Theophany with Jack Barlow en route via Garrick and his teleporting. You may be asking, why Jack Barlow? Well, because Theophany asked for bring Violet and your brother. Bodhi is technically his cousin, but they call themselves brothers. But she was referencing Jack Barlow because they're part of the same brotherhood. Because they're Venin. So they all show up. Shocker. Theophany was lying her ass off, and she still kills Mira. I knew she was going to be lying, because the villain always lies. She just did it so quickly, I was like, god damn. Oh my god. So she, Mira, quite literally, knife to the throat. Because Brennan is a mender, he's like trying to save her, but it's taking a lot of his energy. Conveniently, Sloane and Dane are now en route to them. Sloane came to deliver a package from Eric, and then Dane followed because he's like, this bitch is fucking out of formation and not following orders, so I'm not gonna let her go alone. You know, Sloane is there, and Sloane is like a conduit or something. Whatever her power is, it like drains power from one person. She's taking away Dane's power to transfer it to Brennan so that Brennan can heal Mira. So then they save her. After they move Mira and her dragon, basically just like war breaks out everywhere. Battling Theophany one-on-one. Turns out Theophany is a storm wielder, which previously she was thought to be just a lightning wielder. And then while war is breaking out, we get technically 3, but 2 chapters from alternate characters' point of views. When I tell you, I lost my goddamn marbles. I was so excited when I saw this. We got Rhiannon's POV and we got Imogen's POV. I have literal chills on my arm thinking about it. Because it was the best. It was the best. It was amazing. I especially loved Imogen's POV. Hands down, the best chapter. Hands down, also the most devastating chapter. But it was the best chapter. Oh my god. And then the book ends with Xaden creating a Onyx Storm of Shadow. Hello, book title reference. Basically to save everyone. And it's like such a huge storm. It like goes over the entire city of Drathis. Everyone sees it. And while he's like channeling, he is holding on to his single strain of humanity, which is his love for Violet. While this Onyx Storm happens, Violet, she kills Theophany. For some reason, she passes out. I don't know. And she's unconscious for like half a day. And when she gets back to Xaden's house, she doesn't know what's going on. Turns out, while she was unconscious, she got married to Xaden. Whoa, crazy. Didn't see that coming. There's also some other writers missing, 2 of them being Garrick and Xaden. It's kind of funny thinking about like the 2 best friends who ran away together. But I feel it's pretty obvious that like Garrick ran away with Xaden because they're best friends and they have that brotherly bond of like, wherever you go, I'm going with you. I'm going to protect you. Like, you are not alone in this type deal. And if you're not going to let Violet go, then I'm going with you. It's very read between the lines, but like if you know their dynamic through this series thus far, like, you know that's it. I feel like it's also pretty obvious why they ran away as well. They know that there's going to be this huge target on Xaden's back, and Xaden's doing it to keep everyone, especially Violet, safe now that he's like turned to the dark side fully, if you will. Oh, I just came here to say that I filmed this before realizing that there's speculation as to who the second Venom is at the end of the book. I'll be so honest. When it got to Xaden's chapter, I really didn't give a so I skimmed most of it, and I completely missed the part where there was another character who got turned into a Venom, because Xaden mentions Panchet being there and how Panchet was like the insider and trading all this information and like that he was Venom. And so I was so stuck on that I completely missed the part where he's like, my brother, the one so close to me who has seen me suffer these 5 months, had made the stupid decision to turn Venom. Like, that completely went over my brain. So for me, I was like, well, of course Xaden and Garrick disappeared because they're besties, they're homies, they're bros for life. Of course Garrick is gonna go with him because he's not gonna let Xaden go by himself. It did not register that there was another person and that there's speculation as to whether that Venom is Garrick or whether it is Bodhi. Since then, I'm honestly 50-50. Some days I'm like, it's Bodhi. But then other days I'm like, no, it's Garrick. 100% it's Garrick. So I don't really know. I'm kind of like stuck in the middle. And then some people are like, I think it's Dane, of which I think you're so wrong. And even though I completely misread that entire chapter, I know for a fact it's not Dane. And then some people are saying Eric, which is a really interesting take. And I saw someone make a really good argument for it. I couldn't tell you what it was. And I was like, oh, maybe it is Eric. But I was like, there's no way. There's no way. There's a greater chance of Eric dying than there is of Eric turning venom. And yeah, that's the book. That's the plot. I spent, 45 minutes just talking about the plot? The writing. The first half, up until they left for Unreal, I thought to be very boring. I didn't really care for it. And then Unreal onward, it started to pick up. It was still very cheesy with like doing trials at every island, but whatever, float your boat, I guess, Rebecca. But then it started to pick up and I liked it a lot more. The thing is, though, is I can't tell if her writing got better or I'm just used to her style of writing now. I'm leaning towards the latter. I think it's a little bit of the former. I think she got a little bit better. But then I don't know, some people make comments that I didn't even realize. So a lot of people were saying that she's like continued to info dump and like world build, which actually she did. But I think the thing is why it doesn't bother me as much this book is because we are exploring new lands, and with new lands come like new customs and things like that. So it kind of gives her a pass, but it is still also a lot of info dumping, a lot of world building, a lot of new characters that like you don't really need. So I think also another reason why I like this book pretty decently is because there's not as much arguing happening, if really any. I will say Violet and Zayden start to have the same conversation and it starts to get kind of annoying by the end. But because they're not fighting the same way they did in the second book, it was far more enjoyable and also far more boring because of it. I don't know. The duality, man. The duality, you know? I will say though, writing gets a 4 out of 5 for this book purely because of the 2 POV chapters. Yes. Yup. And I'm afraid to say that. The different POVs were so good and exciting, and they really elevated the story. And I've been saying it since the beginning, this book would be so much better with multiple POVs. It would like add so much dimension to the characters and to the story and really just like elevate it, and that's exactly what it did. However, I will say though, the fact that it has taken 3 books to get here, because in book 1 and book 2 we would end the book with 1 chapter from Zayden's POV, kind of as like an epilogue. And you're like, okay, that's fine. You're like kind of creating this pattern. You're creating the system for yourself that each book is going to end with 1 chapter from Zayden. This book, the 3rd one, she switches it up and adds 2 more characters at the very end, last 10 chapters, on top of the one you're going to get from Zayden. Now it makes the series overall feel very disorganized in the way it's set up. I would assume is the 4th book, we're going to get more of a dual POV. Probably not super often, or maybe she will have it done often and it'll just get redundant. I don't know. But the fact that now incorporating these other POVs, it took 3 books to get here, it just is starting to feel kind of disorganized in the overall setup. But I loved it regardless. Like I said, Imogen's chapter is by far the best. You can't convince me otherwise. Imogen she was kind of annoying the first book, not gonna lie, but she has become one of my favorite characters. And I'm so excited to see more of her this next book. I'm sad we're not going to see more of Garrick the next book, most likely. But if we're not getting more Garrick, we're going to get more Bodhi, because now Zayden's gone, which is a whole thing we're going to get into characters. So, also, final thing. She's not as good at being subtle as she thinks she is. It's so interesting, because watching some, like, interview clips with her, she's like, I thought Violet's second signet was really obvious in the second book, and no one seems to have figured it out. Like, girl, I don't think you realize she thinks she's being subtle when it's actually very obvious. And then things she writes that are supposed to be obvious are actually very subtle. Violet's second signet being an example. Her second signet being dreamwalking was not obvious, no. But, hey, Violet being married by the end of the book, pretty damn obvious. Or like Zayden running away at the end. I don't know, kind of felt like we were building up to that, because what else are we gonna do? Like, if not him running away, what would we be doing the next 2 books? What's the purpose of the next 2 books? You know what I mean? It just, I don't know. And then we are going to finish off with the characters. My favorite section. Once again, we're following a theme here that If this is your first time watching my video, I will let you know I'm not a fan of Violet and Xaden. I care about almost any character more than I do those two. They are at the bottom of my priority list. In terms of characters, we find out that the Relic kids do have or will have a second signet. Thus far, we've only learned of Xaden's, Garrick's, and Imogen's. It was alluded to that Liam probably had a second signet. We haven't learned Sloane's. I think that when Sloane's second signet manifests, she'll probably make that one her primary since she's so scared of the first one that's like whatever the hell it is. And then we know that Bodhi has a second signet, but it wasn't revealed. And I want to say there's another Relic kid, and I can't remember who it is. Is it Baylor? I don't know. But then we do find out what Eric's signet is. He's not a Relic kid, but you know. And then we, of course, find out Violet's second signet. It was disappointing that there wasn't a whole lot of Sawyer, Jasenia, Rhiannon, and Bodhi in this book because, like, obviously they weren't part of the Quest Squad, which is the best squad. But, like, on the flip side, we did get a lot of my mans Garrick, Redoc, and Eric. The trifecta of hot men in this book. I love all of them so much. They are my favorite characters. The ships that we encounter this book, we have, of course, Violet and Xaden, Sawyer, Jasenia, Quinn and Jax, Imogen and Garrick, Slade. I've been shipping them since day one. Traeger and Kat, as well as Dane and Sloane, which honestly I'm here for. It's giving Violet and Xaden 2.0 non-toxic. It's giving true enemies to lovers, which, I mean, not really. No, let's be honest, there's never really been a true enemies to lovers in this series. It's all marketing. And then potentially Mira and Drake. I don't know, but I can see it. And I say this potentially being a ship because their first encounter meeting each other was very Princess Mia meeting Nicholas Devereaux.
Hey, Brick.
Ma'am, may I introduce my nephew, Lord Nicholas Devereaux?
I actually forgot to write this down, but another ship, Bodhi and Violet. There has been a theory going around that Bodhi is secretly in love with Violet and has secretly been in love with Violet. Rebecca has been dropping hints kind of throughout the book, and it's more obvious, more solidified in this third book that Bodhi feels at least some type of way towards Violet. Whether it's like, I just kind of admire her and find her attractive, or like I'm in love with her, but I can't be because she's Xaden's. We do get some like little tidbits about that because especially like when Violet and the guys show up to rescue Mira from Theophany, Bodhi is the one to stay behind with Violet to try and fight off Theophany before Violet realizes how bad of an idea that is. And when she does, she tells Bodhi, hey, you need to go save yourself, like go help the others. You can't be here. And Bodhi is like, but come with me. Kills me. And then even before that, Bodhi says the line to Theophany of like, I'm doing what I always wanted to do, protecting my province and my cousin. And Theophany throws in, and her. That's crazy work. Violet has also made the comment multiple times throughout the books of like, Bodhi looks a lot like Xaden, therefore Bodhi is fine as hell. But they're definitely going to be spending a lot of time together, so I'm not mad about it because I love him. You know what I am mad about? Garrick leaving. I'm very mad about Garrick running away with Xaden. And we're not going to get any Garrick and Imogen content. I truly want to cry thinking about it. And then in terms of like Violet and Xaden's relationship, there's a lot of growth that has happened. We are past the angry stage. They just want to like support one another, be there for one another. They are kind of on the same page. But Xaden's just being angsty and sad, and he's like, you can't save me. You have to be able to live without me. Like, I need you to be able to kill me, blah, 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 blah. I'm a lost cause. And he's trying to not only keep his distance, but, like, spend as much time with Violet as he can and, like, cherish the moments he has with Violet because he does not see himself making it through this and, like, coming out the other end unharmed. And even though he's trying to, like, postpone his full transition into being Venom, he realizes like that it's inevitable. And Violet's like,
Jason, look,
This isn't you, okay? This isn't the you that we all know and love, Jason. You're better than this, okay? Don't listen to what Stinky Drew has to say. He's trying to get you mad. But I know you're better than this.
It gets pretty repetitive. Xaden is just like angsty as hell this book. Bodhi even calls him the Duke of Angst because he's a little depressed. He's still confident and kind of an asshole, but like that's his exterior. His soft interior is very angsty, very sad, very insecure.
You're insecure. You're insecure. You're insecure.
Ooh, like I said for Violet, she's back to being smart again. Don't know what happened. Because the second book, she was going through a lot of turmoil, but she was not using her brain in the slightest. And then magically, her intelligence just returns and she knows the answers to everything. Other than that, I have nothing really to share or say about Violet. Oh, I already loved Eric. I loved Eric pretty much since the moment he showed up on the page in book 2. I just relate to him so much, and his like tactic for handling things is I relate to a lot. He's just like such a treasure trove for information, and he's very selective with who he shares it with, and he like waits for the right time to share it. He's not just gonna like give all this information willy-nilly just because he can. He says, I prefer to keep my mouth shut until I understand the rules of whatever game is aiming for my throat. Helps me judge the character and acumen of my opponent. Period. Because of like the way he was raised, he has adapted to that. He observes a lot of what's going on before he decides what to do and before he decides to open his mouth. Which like that is the part that I can relate to of like I'm the observant person who notices all these little details. Then I'll bring it up later on and they'll be like, you saw that? That happened? Oh, I didn't think of it like that. That's like, so I relate to him a whole lot. Also, him and his dragon, big slave affair. I love Mulvik. Mulvik is my fave. Mulvik hasn't said a single thing, but he's my favorite dragon. Reasoning behind that, he picked Eric, which is solid choice. And he has like a scar across his snout, which I'm like, cool. Very cool. And he's blue. There's not a whole lot of logic happening with that decision, but he is my favorite dragon. Point blank period, the end. And Darna? Here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this. I don't really care for Indarna. Not to say I don't like Indarna, because I do, but it's really hard to understand the purpose of her. Obviously, with it being the third book, part of the plot is to find her species. But because she is essentially a teenager dragon, Taryn and Sigale and the rest of the Empyrean don't really allow her to do anything. Funny enough, I'm making this comment, and yet she does do some stuff in this book. She comes and helps at the Battle of Risha. She also shows up at the very end of the book.
Bruh.
And then obviously, like, she's interacting with her kind. I think it's just I've kind of gotten fed up with her this book, even though it is in Darna's book. It just got to a point that when Leothin, the Irid, came to get her at the Battle of Orisha, I was like, thank God she left. Honestly, she needed to, because she wasn't serving a purpose. She wasn't. I'm so sorry. If not to live with the Irids and, like, help, like, if, like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do for the next 2 books? Now that your kind has rejected you, and we still don't know anything about your kind other than you're peaceful creatures. Right? So when Leothin came to take her, I was like, please do. She's not really giving us a whole lot. All she does is give sassy remarks, which, slay, they are good. But, like, if you keep putting Indarna on the sidelines, what's the point of her being here? Sue me. So sorry. So I was like, cool. She left. She's gonna bring so much to the table. And, like, it's gonna be amazing when she shows up in the next book. Because my thinking was like, wait, what I would do, I would have her leave and then come up in the final book during the final battle. She brings all the Irids and it's like this huge thing. But no. What does Rebecca do instead? When the Onyx Storm is coming in during the final battle, she just pops up out of nowhere. And then when she passes out and regains consciousness, literally outside of Xaden's house, she tries to talk to Taryn, but Taryn is like so exhausted from the battle that he's like in a sleep, not responding. And Indarna has reconnected their bond, and she's like, he's busy right now, he's sleeping. Obviously, that's not telling us like the part she's gonna play in the later books, but I'm just like, you've been gone a week, if that, and you're already back. I can't. That annoyed me. And then, lastly, everyone loves Dane now, which is really funny. We need to take a moment to talk about this. Everyone is like low-key embarrassed by it. It's like, I can't believe that man was horrible. He's like, oh my god, wow, he's so great now, blah, 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 blah. I never hated Dane as much as like most of the fandom seemed to hate him. He just got on my nerves so bad because for me, I said this in my first video, I love a friends to lovers trope, especially childhood friends to lovers. Obviously, the series did not go there, but because I have that preference, I was rooting for Dane a whole lot in book 1, and it started to get real hard to root for him by the end of it because he just kept saying the same shit and making the same mistakes. I'm like, okay, clearly Rebecca is trying to make everyone Team Xaden. It's the way Rebecca writes him. She obviously did that with the intention of like, I don't want the reader to like Dane at first, but they're going to like him later on. Clearly she succeeded. She kept writing Dane to say the same thing of like, I don't want you to get hurt, this and that. But like, if you think about it, bro had a reason to be making those arguments, because if your childhood friend had like no athleticism and is chronically ill and she's like, hey, I'm gonna go ride dragons, you also would probably be like, are you sure about that?
You sure about that?
That's not, I don't think you should do that. Violet did prove him wrong. She's very capable. But, no, I don't blame him for having those concerns. It's just the fact that he made that same argument almost every single time he talked to Violet. And it drove me up the wall. And then Rebecca started his character arc in book 2. And it's continuing that character arc in book 3. She's creating a new love interest for him, and it's Sloane, and it's very cute. I'm a big fan. My gripe with him in this book is that also kind of the same gripe I had with Indarna. What was the purpose of Dane? The moment Dane was there, he was funny as He had such great one-liners because he was so fed up. It gets to the point that like Dane is saying, why am I here if Eric knows everything? Which then Eric responds with like, no one asked. Funny. You even made him question of like, what's the point of him being here? Which is just like, that's crazy work. And his only purpose in the book seems to be, okay, let's provide an extra love interest for fun, as well as he always shows up when you need him. Which, is that convenient? Very much so. But it also shows his leadership and his dedication to his team, because in a lot of these battles, he'll notice someone's in trouble and he comes to help. So his purpose in this book seemed a bit questionable, but I'm not going to complain about it too much because I liked when he was there. My final grading, I'm giving this 4 out of 5 for writing, 4 out of 5 for plot, 4 out of 5 for character. So I don't know what that averages out to. I'll put it right here. But that's it. I think I'm going to sign off for the day. But again, my name is Valerie B. Thank you so much for watching. And if you liked the video, obviously give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in subscribing, that's awesome as well. I do hope to make more videos when they come out. You never know. It's really just when I have at least a week to edit. Have a great day, my lovelies, and I will see you in the next one, whenever that is. Couldn't tell ya. Okay.